You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello friends and welcome to episode 72 of Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host Sulyce, and this week's episode is called 324 Cargo Empires in Star Citizen for I think pretty damn obvious reasons. We are now live in 324, so we have a lot to unpack with what dropped on Wednesday. We'll talk about a little bit of reactions. We had an org night last night where we dabbled in personal hangars with about 13 of us, I think was the max number we had. So 13 of us in personal hangars dealing with the ASOP terminals and calling up ships and whatever. So we'll get into that, of course. The Aegis Sabre Peregrine also released. It's a racing variant that kind of stirred up a little bit of the community and how we feel about a $170 racing ship that doesn't have any weapon systems or anything. So we'll get into reactions there. Today is the end of the ship Showdown, but we're already ready to call in favor of the F-8C Lightning. The F-8C Lightning will be your champion in this year's Ship Showdown. We'll go into Inside Star Citizen, which they called Alpha 4.0 Conflict Resolution. So we'll watch that together. It's a 13-minute video. And then we'll end on a peaceful note of a Galactapeida update that really hones in and focuses on the Sol system and a few other tidbits of fun information. So we have a lot to get through. It's a jam-packed episode. I hope this finds everybody well. On last week's episode, we had both Ollie and Space Tomato on, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. We discussed really the 4.0 being delayed. That was announced in the roadmap update. So we went really heavy into 4.0, but we also talked about 324 being delayed, and it wasn't but 5 or 6 days later. And now we have 324 in our hands. So go give that a listen. It's already one of our top listened to podcasts and watched videos on YouTube. It's a very phenomenal conversation between the three of us. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into this week's from the community. It's not that much. A lot of attention was elsewhere this past week. So whether it was me heavy in work or whether it was other individuals kind of taking a break from Star Citizen until 324 hit, there was kind of a lull up until Wednesday. So let's go through a little bit of the polls, a little bit of the reactions, and we'll get started into this episode. Here we go.
Incoming message.
All right, at the end of every episode, we ask a poll and we ask for your comments. So let's go to episode 71's poll. We asked what remaining ship wins the Ship Showdown in 2954. Actually, let me go to that screen. What remaining ship wins Ship Showdown 2954? At the time, there were 8 ships remaining. And so that was, at the time was the C1, the Nursa, the 600i, the Fury LX, the Reclaimer, the Sulyce, and the F-8C Lightning. Spotify only gave me 7 options, so I purposefully left out the Terrapin. Didn't think it stood a chance, and it didn't. It made the final 4, so whatever. I have a bone to pick with all of you who voted for the Terrapin, but it made the final 4, so we'll give it credit where credit's due. But the polls resulted in the F-8C Lightning coming in at 50% of the vote. So the F-8C did win the poll, and of course it won the Ship Showdown. In second place, I think we could all agree that the C1 came in second place with 33.3%, a third of the vote. And then way far behind, the Sulyce and the Nursa tied with 8.3%, and no one voted for the 600i, the Fury LX, or the Reclaimer. Now, what I will say... the Final 4 is an interesting Final 4, and we'll get into a little bit of a screen share and talk about the results here in the next couple of minutes. But the Final 4 were the C1, Terrapin, Reclaimer, and the F-8C. That's a little bit of everything. C1 being a cargo variant, the Reclaimer being a salvaging, an org level salvaging vehicle, and the F-8C being a solo heavy fighter, and then the Terrapin being probably the useless ship in this conversation. So you had a little bit of everything. All joking aside, the Terrapin's functionality, its defense, its hull HP, doesn't have a game loop in this current moment. So that's what I mean when I say it's worthless. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but all joking aside, it just doesn't have a purpose right now really in the game. And it doesn't have a cargo grid. So even if you wanted to leverage it in 324, you really can't, and you really shouldn't. It's not built for that. So that's what I mean, a little bit of justification there. But the Final Four, very interesting. It spanned the entire breadth of kind of the game loops. You don't really have a mining game loop represented in the entire competition, so we can't really get into that. But again, I liked the diversity of what we had going into the Final Four. And honestly, the best ship won. The C1 probably has the most versatility. And again, we're going to get into this in a couple seconds or a couple minutes, but the C1 does have a lot of versatility. Of course, it has the grid, cargo grid. It's probably the most, it's probably the most useful when you consider its price point and what it currently can do in 324. The F-8C, of course, is a powerhouse. It's a heavy fighter. You're going to get a lot of use out of it, but it's strictly combat. It's bounty hunting for HRTs, VHRTs, and that's basically it. I mean, you can't really do much else with it. But the F-8C won, right? The F-8C won. It's a $300 ship. It's at the time exclusive. You could only get it if you were a wing commander or a Praetorian concierge member, or you did the whole ticket debacle that happened last year. So not everybody has access to the F-8C, and so it'll be very interesting to see what happens. What CIG decides to do with a once exclusive ship. It kind of goes with my fight for the 800 or the 890. I've always kind of wanted the 890 jump to be in the Final Four because I wanted a paint job for it. It's a very exclusive ship, but I thought it would never win because of its exclusivity. And so it's interesting that an exclusive F-8C won it all. So I would love to hear your thoughts. It'll probably be one of the comment section questions that I ask is basically, what are your reactions to Ship Showdown? Do you even care? I think it's probably a really good question. Do you even care about Ship Showdown? So there's the polls. Let's go to the comments section. And again, this is wide open for anybody's response about anything. I can't direct the comment section anymore. Whatever. I think I've talked about it through nausea at this point, but the comment section is live on Spotify to put whatever you want to, and we will discuss those comments on the show. So the first one goes to Anna. This is Prime Entity. Give us the Terrapin. If Terra were to be released, I would go to Earth and find my home. Who else would? So again, the Terrapin I left out purposefully. It is tongue-in-cheek, but it made the Final Four, so in my face. There's a lot of love for the Terrapin, so again, I will give it a chance. It made the Final Four, and I might fly it a couple of missions, but again, it hurts to not have a cargo grid, right? It hurts to not be able to really get into combat situations and be expected to come out on top. If Terra were released, they would go to Earth and find their home. This is interesting. I said it on last episode, but the way Jared Huckabee describes how CIG's decision was initially to build out Terra, but then pivoted to Stanton because Terra was this utopia. It's an oasis. It's already maxed out its potential. I don't think we'll recognize Earth. I don't think we will. I think after 930 years, it's probably going to look completely different. I can imagine CIG would put monuments, like maybe, I don't know, Statue of Liberty. Maybe they might put some, like I said, some monuments or recognizable features around Earth. I can imagine that. Now, whether or not they do, I don't know. There's no intel to really understand which direction they're going with Terra. But it would be kind of fun. It'd be fun to kind of fly. I live in Texas, right? United States, Texas. It would be kind of fun to kind of go where I think the United States, would be and where Texas would be and see just kind of what feel that they went for it. It kind of reminds me of Starfield. So Starfield on the moon, they actually have the like American flag posted on the moon, where it would be in real life. I can see CIG doing the same. I hope CIG kind of does the same, have these Easter eggs where you can fly around and discover that. But we are way out of any release or any understanding of when Terra is going to be available to us. So let's not get too excited there. The next quote from Dakota Riley, I'm glad to see one kick the turtle's butt. The turtle did not deserve to beat the 600i for any reason other than the number of paints. As much as I love a good meme, the 600i should have won that bout. Also, I'm utterly surprised at how they released 324 to live. I was expecting a fairly typical rollout on Thursday or Friday, but the one night I'm at Dungeons & Dragons, they roll it out to live. That means if we can get to 4.0 Evocati next week, we might just get 4.0 before CitizenCon, depending on the PTU. All right, the 600i, even I'm sick of the 600i. I agree, it is probably one of the best ships in the game, still continues to be one of the best ships in the game, especially when it does get its rework. I think once it gets its rework, it will win that year's ship showdown, absolutely should. But man, that ship does have like every paint, literally every paint. every I think the Fortuna, I'm totally guessing here because I don't have it in front of me. I think the Fortuna has it. I think some of the best in shows have it. I think the besides the Fortuna, what's the other pack? My mind's going blank in this moment. I know it at least has like 5 of the major paint jobs, and so I'm okay with it not getting yet another paint job. But like, is that essentially what the ship showdown is? Like, have we diminished the ship showdown to just which paint jobs we want? And then how many people actually update their paints? Like when I'm flying around Star Citizen, I don't see a lot of people modifying their ships in that way. I see a lot of base paint, right? Like I rarely see a Mercury Star Runner outside of its white, red, and black accents. I'm curious how many people truly go in and change their liveries, and then is it worth, voting for and quote unquote upsetting another ship from winning? I'm an old-fashioned individual. Like I would love to see like the metrics put up against each other. Like when you're talking racing, which one's faster? Is it agility over, straightforward speed? It doesn't matter if a racecraft has a weapon system or doesn't have a weapon system. Like I would love to see the actual numbers and the actual features go up against each other. But at the end of the day, it seems like it's more about being an underdog or the upset or who gets a livery or who gets a paint job. It feels that way. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know what the overall sentiment is there. So there's your Spotify comments and polls. Let's go over to the emails. Prime Entity is rocking it on emails. So let's go to the first email. So when I say quote unquote commission, I mean, do you have anything you want done in my style? Also, I hope that the Terrapin will be number 2 in Ship Showdown. And then they share, I want to make sure I don't have any personal information on here, but let me share the screen. So I will say Prime Entity does a good job sharing like these oil painting versions of Star Citizen content, and they're very well done. I can see this work being done in like B-rolls, so like in between shots or angles, maybe as I'm narrating or somebody is narrating and talking about, the cutter, for instance. This would be a nice B-roll, a nice cutaway as like a different aesthetic, a break in the aesthetic as somebody is talking. So this is amazing. If you have work to be done for Prime Entity, send me an email. We'll get the two of you in contact. Let's get their work out there. But for me personally, I record a podcast. Like I'm lucky to get the video out on YouTube. It's literally just this podcast. So I don't think I'm a good vessel for visual art, But if there's somebody out there who loves this aesthetic and wants to work with Prime Entity, let's get y'all connected. But here's the Drake cutter. Back to the email. Anyway, thanks for the podcast. Also, the Organites haven't been showing up in the podcast lineup. Is it because you stopped recording them, or have I got a glitch on my hands? So it's actually the former. I don't know. I've recorded 15, maybe 16. I think it's 15 or 16 bonus episodes of our Org Nights, and I chose to stop. And the reason for that is people change their behavior. They modify themselves when they know that they're being recorded and that their content is going to be consumed in whatever platform, podcast, YouTube, whatever. And you would I could tell that when we were recording, people would change, and it wasn't an authentic, fun experience. I would much rather have 12, like last night's 13 Soul Provision members just being themselves, having a good old time. Again, it's a bunch of adults in a room, so I mean, the curse words, the topics, the subjects, it's what you would expect out of 13 grown-ass adults, like having fun in a personal hangar. I don't want to diminish that or to suppress that by recording a podcast. Now, what I will do, and what I've told the organization, is that if we have like a deliberate night, like a task and purpose, we're going to do this one mission, we want to explore Blockade Runner. Like when we first do Blockade Runner in 324, I will record that Org Night because it's a first experience for us, and I think that would be fun and exciting. But if we're just shooting the shit, I don't know. I don't want to destroy or impact the authenticity of us just trying to get together and play. So they also attached another screenshot. So here we go. This is of course you would. This is the Terrapin. So it's a different aesthetic. It's not oil painting. Almost looks like an old-fashioned kind of, what would you call it? Overexposed? I think that's the term, but overexposed photo of the Terrapin, kind of looking out of a crevice of a rock. It's again, really well done. Check out the YouTube if you're on podcast. You can see these images. Again, if you are interested in working, send me an email. I will get the two of you in contact. A couple more emails from Prime Entity. Is it just me, or do the updates in the threes match the years? It might just be me, though. So then they put 24 equals 3, 24, 23 equals 323, etc. So it's actually not accurate. Not to, that feels weird saying it in that way. Let me share my screen for those of you on YouTube. So 322 launched in December of 2023. So those don't align. 323 launched in May of 2024. So just earlier this year. Right? So the first time in this series, at least, the first time the years have matched, it's 324. So 324 just launched on Wednesday, and that of course was Q3 of 2024. And I still think we will see 4.0 in Q4. So theoretically, that won't necessarily match up with the year either. But again, I don't want to come across like, oh, you're wrong. I'm very what's the word? Obsessive. I guess maybe I'll say meticulous. That's probably a better word than obsessive. I'm very meticulous when it comes to dates and all that. So there's a second email, and then they also wanted to share their oil painting of the Drake Corsair. And again, Corsair's fine. It's nice. I like the Corsair. It's a good go-to vehicle. I'm not going to talk shit about it anymore. But here's your oil painting Drake Corsair with the Nursa, or a version of the Ursa, coming out of the cargo. So again, good work. Love it. Love all of it. All right, so thanks for the emails. That's contact@beyondtheversehq.com. Send it. We'll talk about it. We'll show it. Literally anything. Wrapping up from the community, let's go to the Twitter polls. I only asked 2 of them, and let's go to the first one. So this is has nothing to do with Star Citizen, but we also this past week had Star Wars Outlaws launched, and I'm just curious. Again, my podcast is Beyond the Verse. I'm okay breaking away from Star Citizen from time to time. I think that's okay. It's on brand, in my opinion. So I asked the community, Star Wars Outlaws, was released. What's your recommendation? So with most of the Star Citizen community wanting to kill time between patches, etc., I wanted to ask if you have dabbled in Star Wars Outlaws. What are your thoughts so far? Please explain why in the comments. Not a hugely engaged poll. We had just under 500 views, about 45 votes. So again, not that much feedback, but it's still feedback nonetheless. And so strongly incline, fun but not award-winning, don't waste your time, and strongly decline. Those are your 4 options. A third of the vote went for strongly decline. So don't do it, don't try it, right? And then kind of a negative sentiment, whether it's fun but it's not award-winning, or don't waste your time. That was 28.9% for both. And then only 8.9% said strong incline. And that aligns with most of the feedback that I'm hearing. Again, this is a Star Citizen podcast. I don't mind going beyond it, but when I do watch videos, Osmongold did a video. I actually like and trust Osmongold's feedback. It does look like a 2020 game or earlier, right? Like the graphics are really choppy. It looks pretty rough. I would say like maybe similar to Starfield, like probably a little better than Starfield, but it seems fragmented. It seems like there's not a lot of story to drive. And again, I haven't played it, but just what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, I think IGN got it right. IGN, the review company, they gave it a 7 out of 10. And I think from what I have heard, read, watched, I would probably match it with a 7 out of 10, knowing that I haven't touched it. I haven't played it, and I probably won't play it. What I have been playing before 324 launched. Now, what I have been playing is No Man's Sky, and I've really come around to liking No Man's Sky. I used to hate the idea of crafting to survive. I hate games like that. It doesn't do it for me. Was it Valheim? I think Valheim was one that like got me like started and absolutely hated it. Then I went into like Sons of the Forest, and I liked most of it, but still eating to survive kind of bothered me. Like, let me just play the damn game. No Man's Sky does a good balance. Like, you need to get oxygen for your jet pack, you need to like get fuel for things, but you don't have to like drink water and eat food in order to survive. You can play the game and not die in the process. So anyways, I like No Man's Sky. Go give it a try if 324 is not your thing, or if you need something to buy your time between now and 4.0. All right, so the second post, and this is the last poll I asked on Twitter, this is more relevant. So on Wednesday, not only did we get Alpha 324, but we also got the Aegis Sabre Peregrine. And I did look it up. It is Peregrine, guys. Like, I don't, who else? Who else had to go and look up how to pronounce Peregrine? When it first released, I'm like, Peregrine? How the hell do you say this? And I'm like an English undergrad, right? My bachelor is in English and history. So I don't know. I've never actually like heard or have seen Peregrine written out or heard it said. I know it's weird. That is entirely weird, but I'm transparent and I'm admitting to that. Aegis Sabre Peregrine. So I asked the question, will you be an owner of the latest racing ship, good lord, knowing it is built for straight line speed, not agility, and a lack of weapon systems to defend against Star Citizen-y things? Tell us why in the comments. Now this was resounding. So 1,200 views, 274 votes. So I would say this is legit feedback. Out of 274 votes, 75% say no. And I think when we get into the ship's Q&A, you're going to understand why. It's $170 for not a lot of ship. Does it look amazing? It looks sexy. It is an amazing looking ship. But the amount of time you're going to spend in it, it's like the P-72 Archimedes. It's fun to look at, but how often are you going to be getting in that thing? Unless you're an arena commander, but how often are you going to be getting into that thing in the PU and actually getting your money's worth? More to come later in the show. But 75% say no. 16% say yes, but they're going to buy it with in-game money, the in-game currency, UEC, United Earth currency, United Empire currency. There you go. And then 10% say yes with the pledge store money. Again, $170. I thought that was super interesting, very telling. I had put that ship many times in my checkout, in my cart. I was so close to buying it so many times, but I never pulled the trigger because of what it lacked. There's your teaser for the next couple of minutes. So let's get into This Week in Star Citizen. Not bad. That was like, 20 minutes worth from the community. We're going to try to work on speeding that up a little bit so we get to the meat of our conversation. So quickly, we'll go through This Week in Star Citizen and then to the meat, the main focus of today's show. We'll get into the launch of 324. Here we go. Happy Monday, everyone. Last week, our team had an amazing time connecting with hundreds of you in Cologne. Whether we were catching up with familiar faces or welcoming new pilots, Gamescom has become a highlight of our Bar Citizen tour, with many of you traveling from across Europe to join us. Be sure to check out the photo gallery below the content schedule for a glimpse of the event. Thank you to everyone who came out, and we can't wait to see you all again soon. Join us in Seattle next week on August 30th as our team heads to PAX West. We'd love to see you at the Bar Citizen, where the fun begins at 7 p.m. at Stoup Brewing. Don't miss out. In case you missed it, we recently restocked a limited batch of CitizenCon 2954 general admission tickets. If you kicked yourself for not picking one up earlier, now's your chance. We won't be restocking again, so secure your spot and join us at this year's big event. Break. That has been in a lot of these weekly reports. They added general access tickets a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. Should we read into the fact that they can't fulfill them? I don't know. That's interesting. They opened up more, and it's been available to buy in the next couple of weeks. Or maybe the more optimistic approach or positive approach is people who are going to go are going. And this is too late in the game for some people to make that late decision that they're going to fly across, the world to get to CitizenCon. So it might be too late in the game. Back to the article. Meanwhile, the excitement for the verse ramps up as we enter the final duel of the top 8 in this year's ship showdown. Today, 2 newcomers face off: the Anvil's formidable F-8C heavy fighter and Gaddock's newly humanized Sulin light freighter. Cast your votes now to decide who advances to the final 4, which will battle out tomorrow before taking the spotlight during the Best in Show days at the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo later this year. And finally, a huge thank you to everyone testing Alpha 324 in the PTU. Your support is invaluable as we prepare to launch the patch, bringing exciting updates for cargo haulers and citizens from all corners of the verse. To the bullet points. Monday, we had This Week in Star Citizen. Tuesday, the lore post, which we will end this show on, talking about the Galactapeida update. Thursdays, Inside Star Citizen. And then Friday, later on today, after the recording of this podcast, we will get the RSI the weekly newsletter, the Jump Point magazine, the August 2024 issue, and then more information over the Bar Citizen. I'm going to keep sharing my screen. All right, here we go. Patch notes. So usually, the last several episodes, I would go straight into patch notes because 324 existed in the PTU for several months at this point. But now, here are your patch notes for 324 in the live PU. So if you've listened to us before, this is not your first podcast. Nothing has changed. It is the patch notes from the PTU. Now they're just applied over here. So I'm not going to go through line by line. I think it'd be interesting to talk about what persisted through LTP and actual gameplay loops that were added. So let's get into it. So items not saved to long-term persistence or LTP. So the hangar decoration customizations, the decorations will be returned to players' home location inventory, and then your med pens, ammo, ongoing rentals, refinery jobs. That's typical, right? But this new idea of hangar decoration customizations, that's not going to be saved to the long-term persistence. So be advised there. Features and gameplay. Again, this is nothing new, but gameplay. Personal instance hangars, freight elevators, cargo hauling missions, item banks, the hangar decorations, towing and hull scraping law system updates, the FPS tractor beam use adjustments, the commodity kiosk updates, and the carry lowered FPS weapon keybind is now Alt-R. Ships and vehicles, Master Mode's Atmo flight controller retuning, ship cockpit third-person camera polish, the whole sea shield and health updates, addition to many new cargo hauling rentals to all rental shops around Stanton. And then for core tech, we saw ultra-wide UI scaling updates, the added slight boundary violation grace time to planet kill volumes for vehicles, further ship debris collision physics performance improvements, and the Vulcan performance polish. We still have a lot of known issues. Guys, I want to take a second. And I've been doing this without sharing my screen. So now I'm sharing my screen. Again, patch notes live inside of the spectrum, inside literally the category called patch notes. Read this for yourself. But let me just react to this real quick. We are not in a good place of 324. We're in a tolerable place, and that's even debatable. But we're not really in a good or optimized part of 324. There are still storage access issues. They're not binding, like the items you're dragging over to your body aren't clicking for the most part. They're not staying on you. Oftentimes the camera's jacked up, so you have to position yourself in the right spot before you hit F to access. There's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of issues with the personal hangars, calling up ships, having friends. Like again, we had 13 people last night in sole provision coming into my personal hangar or some of our personal hangars, and doing that was very problematic. We'll talk about that here in a second. You're going to have a lot of 3.24.x patches. We're not done before 4.0. It's not like the next thing is 4.0. It's not. We're going to have .x. We're going to have .1, .2, probably a .3 for all the things to refine and become better. So with this positive outlook of 324 and hey, we're there and we're probably going to see 4.0 in Q4, it's more light at the end of the tunnel, there's still a little bit of realism here that there's work to be done. It's not in a good place. I still would not recommend Star Citizen to friends in this current moment. I would wait, honestly, until like right before 4.0 or maybe when 4.0 goes live. And even then, I'd be weary because the game's going to be risky in 4.0 whenever it first launches. So I just want to be very clear. There are a list of known issues. One second. There's a list of known issues that they need to work on. The audio still hasn't been fixed. If you've been listening to this podcast, that's my biggest gripe. When you walk into the hangar for the first time, your ears bleed. It is the loudest, most obnoxious thing, and it kind of just happens throughout your tenure inside of the hangar. You'll be standing in the center or maybe getting into your ship, and all of a sudden those sound loops will start playing again. It's crazy. It's absurd. So that still needs to be fixed. There's just a lot of issues. So I want to be very real with my listeners. I'm very happy with the status of this first version, but it needs work. There you go. Let me stay sharing my screen directly into the let me go into the actual page. So here's your robertspaceindustries.com. So this is your actual page of the release. This is their marketing, push. It's not the Spectrum notes, right? But this is the marketing push. It's beautiful. It's very cargo, right? This is the cargo patch. It's called Cargo Empires. So you're going to see the Argo raft kind of spearhead everything. Their little video that they came out with, it's the Argo raft, which I'd highly recommend getting. It's available now. Go get it. You also see that's the whole C. I think they're both whole C's. There's a whole C over here to the right of the screen, and then there's another whole C. The reason why I hesitated, it almost looks a little bigger, but I think it's the same size. And actually, I take it back. This is the whole A, because whenever the wings are deployed, you can tell the difference. This is the whole A with the wings deployed, and in the background to the right, that's the whole C with the wings deployed. The Nomad, one of your starter vehicles that has a nice little garage in the back, like a pickup truck. And then, of course, you have everything else, right? Freelancer, C2, Caterpillar. And the Mule, if you want to talk Drake. So the video is really nice. I think we'll get into that here in the next second. Let's just go through the experience. So Cargo Empires, this is the executive summary of what this patch is. So, quote, it takes a lot to keep the United Empire of Earth moving, and behind every skilled fighter pilot, selfless medic, and titan of industry as a dedicated courier, hauling crucial supplies between the distant reaches of the galaxy. Alpha 324 Cargo Empires introduces a wealth of updates that improve life in the verse for those vital cargo haulers and citizens of all walks of life, including freight elevators, persistent hangars, and all new missions. And it's got some clickable images about making your personal hangar your home, how to load up, quote unquote, creating an empire, but what it looks like to optimize trade routes. So these are also guides if you're interested and maybe you haven't really dabbled in delivery missions or maybe the trade routes prior to 324. I would highly recommend clicking on some of these and going through them. So you can click on Learn How here. So here's the video. We're going to get into the video. I'm going to let you watch it. There's no words, so if you're on podcast, bear with me. But we're going to watch this video together. I think it's a really fun preview, and then we'll talk about it. So here we go. Let's do this. As it's playing, I'll kind of talk to you about what it's doing. So they're riding in a raft. They've put a box on the table inside the raft, and they're using the white and black paint job. They just arrived to an on-site landing pad that has the new freight elevators on it, and you can see them loading up their ships. So they're using, that was a cargo trolley, which I haven't seen yet. So heads up there, that was new. They're pushing boxes, and now they're loading it into an orbital station. More dancing, more fun. Now this gets into kind of maybe the PvP aspect. You can see them going into a contested zone. It looks like you got some bounty hunters or pirates that see the loot, and so they want to get on the ship to take their loot. So you kind of see this happening as well. Maybe the risks of cargo hauling. It takes off. It's a very nice, serene image of the simple delivery of the box on one of those outposts. And it's going to wrap up there. Deliver your own story in our newest update. Awesome. Yeah, I tried to narrate that as best I could for those of you on podcast, but it's just a fun video. You heard the kind of music theme, kind of sounds like Fallout. Got that 20s music or 40s music. The themed music. I actually think that was not legit music, but anyways. All right, so freight elevators. With all of these are little videos. So freight elevators, it shows you the mechanics and the user interface. So again, go through this yourself, read and look at it. If you've been part of this podcast, none of this is new. Nothing at all. So instance locations. So I want to quickly, this was discussed last night in our org night. I want to paint the picture or paint the difference between persistence and instanced. So the only thing persistent that was released, so the new stuff that is persistent, is your personal hangar. So when I say persistent, think of when you log out and log back in. This is the way I perceive it. So when you log out and log back in, you should be able to set up furniture, move things around, put boxes, leave like a NERSA parked on the side. You should be able to do all of those things that quote unquote persist, whether you're in game or out of game, inside of your personal hangar, right? It's also instanced, right? Because it's not gonna, you can have 100 people in Orison all in their personal hangars, but of course there's not 100 hangars at Orison. So in that definition, they are all instanced, and that's why now you have a queue. So you got a queue to land, you have to queue to take off. That's because it's instanced. We can't just have everybody leaving at the same time with these made up locations. I think everybody's okay with that. It's realistic. So think about leaving an airport in real life. In real life, you have to taxi out to your runway. You have to wait for ATC to say, all right, it's plane number XYZ. It's now your time to take off, and then you take off. So it's very realistic. I have no problem with instancing inside of a inside of Star Citizen. So when I say persistent, think of that. So persistence. Every other hanger is now instanced. So you can take as much time as you want. Let me just read the description. Take all the time you need in your hanger. This first proper use of instancing technology gives every player their own hanger to spawn vehicles without the wait. There's no time limit, so you can take as long as you need to load up and prepare for the dangers of the verse. Your hangars that you land in at orbital stations are instanced. This is so you can load up because of the freight missions, right? You might take 10, 15, 20 minutes loading up a whole C or a C2 inside of an instanced hangar at an orbital station, right? So you need time to be able to load up and do all of those things. So all of those hangars are also instanced. So every hangar is instanced. Only your personal hangar is persistent. I should be very clear about that. Okay, moving on. So here's your persistent personal hangars. Make your hangar your home. Every player now has a persistent hangar at their primary residence that can be decorated with any owned decorations and flair. Guys, I'm still not going to do this. I'm sorry. I'm still not going to participate in the personal hangar until they have the unique item recovery. I'm not going to put subscription items around the hangar just for it to glitch out or to be lost or whatever, which we saw happen last night. If there's no way to get all those items back, I'm not going to do it. I'm also going to wait until there's grid locking. Like I think your personal hangar needs to have grid coordinates or cargo grid, if you will, for your items. Like your sofa needs to be able to lock into the ground, right? Posters on the walls need to be able to lock into a position on the wall. There's a lot of work to be done. This is why I'm saying 324.x, right? A .1, .2, .3. We're going to have to make these iterations at some point, but this needs a lot of work. If you want to decorate your hangar, you can go to, and I've only been at this location in Orison, but you can go to that Kelto, whatever you call that location that's over on Cloudview where the clinic is. So catty corner to the clinic is that little grocery store. You can actually go to that kiosk and buy all the furniture. And on this video we're watching here in the background, they're going to a Tamiya & Sons, and apparently you can buy from a Tamiya & Sons as well. I'm looking forward to being able to do this at some point. I just think it's too unstable. It's kind of volatile at this current moment. All right, ship elevators. Here's my advice to you. If you're getting into 324 for the first time, I would still go to the main ASOP terminals like you once had to. I would go to the ASOP terminal, call your first ship, and that will virtually force your hangar to be an option on the elevator. So last night, a lot of the org members that went in for the first time couldn't find their hangar button in their elevators to get down to their elevator. And the fix for that was using the main ASOP terminals to call any sized ship, and then it would kind of force that procedure to happen. So you'd go to the elevator, and then Sulyce's extra large hangar would appear as an option. So just to get past that, but you do have in your personal hangar, you do have access to both storage access kiosks and ASOP terminals. So you can do everything. You can literally spend the rest of the time in game in your personal hangar. So, and it was great. Like for it to be Orison, we had great frame rate all night last night. It was great because they're instanced. It was a really, really good experience for the most part. Cargo management, this is new, this is different. Tradable commodities such as barrel and gold are now traded in boxes with different locations offering varying sizes relating to their location. So you're going to see all this on the screen. It's really no difference as far as the PTU patch goes. Excuse me. Automated cargo loading. This is mainly for the whole sea, or at least my experience. Because with the whole sea, you're going to go to a commodity shop and you can automatically load into your ship. It looks like in the video we're seeing here, they're doing it to a C2 Hercules. So if you don't want to go through the process of loading it yourself, you can have it automatically done. So, quote, if manually loading your ship via freight elevators doesn't suit your play style, all hangars now support automated cargo loading. While your ship will be unavailable for a short while, it will return. It will return fully stocked, rearmed, and ready to take off. So, I like that they're accommodating both play styles, and honestly, it works well with whatever mood I'm in. Sometimes I want to go through the monotony of loading up like I would in real life, and there's other times I only have 30 minutes to play. I'd rather not be forced to play another game. So if I can do something in 30 minutes, and so having it auto load, I think is a good meeting halfway, I guess. Hauling missions, we already talked about that. That's new. Blockade Runner. So Blockade Runner, you've heard us talk a little bit about that in the previous podcast episodes. It's going to be fun. I can't wait until the final version comes out, right? But essentially it's cargo hauling on steroids. Cargo hauling where you need to go and attack a location to get to the cargo, and then you have to get back to an orbital station where you have to defend yourself. So it's attack, defend, cargo hauling. It's going to be a really fun org event. If you're not part of an org, become part of one. Supervision's always looking and always willing to grow. And then last but not least, here is your Aegis Sabre Peregrine. It is a beautiful, beautiful ship. You're watching it on the screen. We'll actually watch the preview here in a couple of seconds. I'm not going to knock its aesthetics. It's gorgeous. When we go through the Q&A, I think it'll explain why you should probably save your money and just buy this in-game. All right. With 324, there were ship offers. They released 13 ships. So not released. They made available on the Pledge Store 13 ships, and that's the C2 Hercules, the Caterpillar, the Constellation Taurus, the Freelancer Max, the Hull A, the Hull C, the M2 Hercules, the MPUV Tractor, the Mule, the Raft, which you should absolutely get. That is a well-spent $125. The Reclaimer, the Sabre Peregrine, of course, and then the Drake Vulture. And so there's your marketing push. And also there's a starter pack. There's the Nomad Jackal starter pack. So it's the Nomad, it looks like a special paint job with gear, with the same colored gear. And that's $76. Some upgrade offers to the Freelancer Max, and an upgrade offer to the Hull C. There you go. So there's, again, your marketing push, what they're putting out in front of everybody to get 324's information out there. We already talked through the patch notes. Let's get into that's not the cargo. That's not what I wanted to show you. It is the hangar games. Here we go. So this is kind of tucked away. It's kind of hidden inside of this release, and it's only found in the general tab of Spectrum. But there's a contest going on right now. It's called the 2024 Hangar Games Contest. So with the newly introduced personal persistent hangars, allowing for uninterrupted management of cargo inventory and even vehicles, a perfect way to start your very own player housing. These hangars can be found at players' home locations and allow for customization and organization of the hangar interior. There is this contest. So how to participate. Alpha 324 sees the release of the personal persistent hangars, an eagerly awaited feature in the persistent universe. It is a chance for players to celebrate the features, showcase their creativity, and earn rewards for the most amazing entries. Decorate your hangar with everything that you can find in the verse and make it your very own. Send us your best screenshots for a chance to earn a beautiful ship. Here's the winners. So in first place is the Origin 600i with LTI. Second place is the Drake Corsair with LTI. And then the third place is the Misk Reliant Core with LTI. So these are legit, awards. So I was thinking there was like a tag or something. I was trying to get you the details. There are contest rules, but I think it's just submitting to the community hub. So it's just submitting. So use quote Hanger Games 2954 contest end quote as part of the title for your submission to the community hub, and that's how you submit. Sometimes these events have a hashtag that you can put into Twitter, but it doesn't look like the case on this one. So the dates for this is now until Wednesday, September 11th. Yes, they gave us 2 dates, and that's confusing as hell. So the submission period ends on Wednesday, September 11th at midnight Pacific, or Thursday, September 12th at 7 a.m. UTC. Okay. It's so confusing. Anyways, so there we go. I thought that was a fun way to end kind of the 324. Yes, there's a welcome back pilot that kind of catches everyone up to speed with where we've been since Alpha 320. So this is always a good resource. I use this as a resource whenever I do some research on content that I'm creating. But you can go all the way back to Alpha 320 and see what launched from that to 321, 322, obviously 23 and 24. But this has information, how to get more involved, the changes, kind of more of what we just saw in the release, but it's cumulative. It like brings everything together. So I think it's a good approach. It's the right approach to bring in gamers that might have left, right? So I've said this once and I'll say it again. Gaming, or I guess in general, marketing has an acronym called WAR, WAR. It's the win back, acquisition, and retain. So if you're making a marketing push, what is the task and purpose of your push? Is it to win back people that have left your game? Is it to acquire new players? Or is it to retain the ones that are currently playing? And so I think that is a good way to kind of get people like win back, to get people who have left the game, get them up to speed, and get them out the door ready to play in 324. Last but not least, there's a cargo guide. I've already covered this in several episodes. Go check it out yourself. This one's specifically to 324, but how to get started, tools of the trade, things that you need to have or maybe nice to have, main ships that are going to, help out, etc. Like what not to do is a really good one as well. So, all right, like I said, with the release of 324, we have the Aegis Sabre Peregrine. It's fast. It's pretty. That's it. Like that should be the marketing for it. It's fast. It's pretty. Next chip. I don't know, guys. I think so. I'm a Praetorian Concierge member. Do with that what you will. Make the assumptions you want to make. I have a lot of selection in my hangar. I've gotten to the point where I don't really want to spend any more new money unless it's a ship that is like a jack of all trades. And I don't necessarily want CIG or Star Citizen to create a ship of like a jack of all trades. I don't necessarily want that. It's not realistic. And I like the idea of having like specialized vehicles. So like I'm already being a hypocrite in that sense. But I don't want to buy anything new unless it can do multiple things. I think the persistent personal hangars is a move in the right direction for calling new ships quickly and being able to switch with like my mood. So I might start the night off wanting to do combat missions, but then I might want to dabble in delivery or cargo missions. And if I'm in an F8C Lightning at the beginning of my night, it's a lot to go back and change to a cargo hauling ship. It's even worse when we talk about racing ships. One, racing is not my thing. I only race an Arena Commander because I blow up a lot. Just full transparency. But I think racing is even worse because that is a complete 180 from all other game loops. This doesn't even have a weapon system. So heaven forbid, I mean, you wouldn't be able to survive much anyways, even if you did, if you had a pirate or if you had a, griefer come in and try to run ruin your night. You could outrace them, or you could outrun them, maybe, perhaps. But you're very, like, what's the word I'm thinking of? You're handcuffed, right? You're handcuffed into doing one thing with this ship. So is it a nice to have? I think I would buy it in game because it is beautiful, and I like the Aegis Sabres, to be very honest with you, the new styles. But yeah, I don't know. I would not recommend it. You're not hearing Beyond the Verse recommend $170 on this ship. So let's get into what this is. It's freaking fast. So here's the video. We're gonna watch it together. It's very fast for straight line distance. It can make some pretty decent turns, but again, we're talking M50. So the Origin M50 straight line distance is its thing. It's not gonna be nimble, like the 350R. Right? It's not gonna be nimble, especially not like the Fury LX. So here's the video. Let's watch it together.
Saw something that wasn't there in the corner of your eye. A light dance just out of frame. Blink, hell, breathe, and you've missed it. There. Did you see it? Or was it just another trick of the light? Sometimes, if you're lucky enough, you might just catch lightning in a bottle. Sabre Peregrine. Catch it if you can.
Yep. So the Peregrine's I think fastest bird in the world. I think is its name, or the claim to fame. But again, like, it sounds amazing. Like, you heard the sound effects. We saw it last night. We had a couple of org members bring it into my hangar. It's great. It's great for all the pretty things. It sounds great. Looks great. I'll say it one last time. It's just not going to do much else. Actually, it's not going to do anything else, period. So here's more videos, more pictures that I'm showing you. I'm going to quickly scroll through everything. Here's 4 images. So here's your factory standard Aegis Sabre Peregrine, right? So it's this kind of a gray, dark gray with green highlights. All right, so when we go next, this is the Harvest paint job. It's a black and orange. I think it's like an additional $7. I'm scrolling through quickly here. Paint. Yeah, Starlight paint's $6. It's about $6. Okay, so we'll say the paint jobs are $6. So here's your Harvest black and orange. Here's your Firebreak black and red, which I think that's a sick color combination. And if you are a concierge member, you get the Starlight. It's black and chrome, which is my color palette. Like, I love darks. So if it's a dark black, dark gray, dark chrome, this would be my color scheme. With maybe a couple of red highlights, which I guess the E in Sabre is red, but everything else is black and chrome. So the paint jobs are really well done. I would probably recommend the Firebreak. I like the red highlights, or of course, if you're a concierge, get the Starlight. The packs. So you've got some standalone packs. Again, if you're concierge, there's $170 War Bond. It comes with the Starlight paint. And then if you're not, you could just get the base Peregrine for, again, $170, just obviously without the paint. These are War Bonded at lifetime insurance. So boom, just opened it up, showing you now the lifetime insurance. It comes the Sabre Peregrine serial number. That's interesting. I wonder what that means. Let me see if it's cool. I need to do some research. I don't necessarily know what the Sabre Peregrine serial number means. Let's see if that's also in the concierge. Let me ask the community. Hey guys, in the comment section, whether it's YouTube or in Spotify, let me know what the serial number means. I don't know if it's their version of like the naming convention. Like you used to be able to name your ship. So I wonder if this is a unique identifying number for your ship, maybe. Makes sense to me. So moving on. If you don't want the War Bond and you want to just upgrade or use store credit to the Peregrine, you can do so for $185. And then you've got ship packs. So if your thing is the Sabre Comet, right, the Sabre line, the lineup, you can get the collection pack for $620. Now, caveat, you can't get the Sabre Raven, so I don't know how much of a collection this is. Can you call something a collection if it doesn't have the full collection? Right, so the Sabre Raven is an Intel gift that is exclusive to the Intel gift giving or whatever. I don't have any more details. It's just an exclusive ship that's available to a very small customer segment. So there's actually 5 Sabres. This collection is only 4, right? So if we open this up, it's the Comet, Firebird, Peregrine, and of course the base Sabre. $620 feels like a lot. It feels like a lot of money, but you do get access to those 4. And then, of course, the paint schemes we already talked about. Let's go into the Q&A. So here is kind of where I make my decisions. Anytime I see a new ship, I look at the marketing push, which we just did. The marketing push with the video, it's kind of my feelings and emotions. Does it get my feelings and emotions up and like I'm excited to read about the Q&A? I can't say that happened for the Peregrine because, again, racing is not really my thing. But that's kind of my first step. And then I go into the Q&A to really make my decision. So let's just go through this quickly. All right, so the Aegis Dynamics is traditionally a military manufacturer. Why is it building a racer? I think CIG's response is like, why not? We can do whatever the hell we want to do. So we're doing it. They're, quote, traditionally but not exclusively. While a lot of Aegis hardware is designed for military application, Aegis and other manufacturers always look to see what other markets they can expand into based on the resources available. With the Raven and Firebird chassis, it made sense to provide a more civilianized version of the platform. There you go. I only read that question because it was asked quite often at Twitter, or over on Twitter. The rest of these, I'm not necessarily going to get into. I'll go through very quickly. So the Peregrine has an impressive forward acceleration in normal conditions and when using its afterburner. Okay, cool. What sets the racing variant apart from other? The most prominent characteristics are its unique and unmatched forward acceleration, again, enhancing the ship's racing prowess, and stronger afterburner for reactive acceleration during difficult turns. So basically, it's not going to bank well, but you can accelerate out of a turn very quickly. Are there any unique flight characteristics? The fundamental thing that distinguishes the Peregrine from other ships is its original archetype. While most racers are based on snub, light fighters, interceptors, the Peregrine elevates the medium interceptor archetype to competition standards, making it the most formidable vessel in the forward acceleration, at the expense of some nimbleness due to its larger size. Okay. The Sabre Peregrine is the answer to everything the Fury LX isn't. There are 2 unarmed racing ships, so they're designed to be our ultimate pace setters. While the Fury's gimbaled main thrusters give it good maneuvering in twisty sections, the Peregrine is the opposite. The main thruster is typically positioned, but its power is far from typical, enabling the Peregrine to accelerate at up to almost 30 Gs. Pair that with high aerodynamics, and this is a hero of the racetrack that emphasizes top speed over cornering. So it sounds kind of repetitive. A lot of these questions are repetitive. So let me go through the ones that kind of stood out to me. Let me find them first. Nope, don't care about those. Maximum SEM speed is 267. Okay, if that means anything to anybody. Here we go. This is important. Question. The Peregrine is the only non-snub racing ship without any weapons. What are the advantages of not having offensive capabilities, and which means of self-defense are available to the pilot? Does it benefit from its low profile or extra countermeasures? I mean, essentially, CIG's like, no, you're screwed. And this right here is why I did not get the Peregrine. Quote, the benefit of having no weapons is reduced weight and complexity. Like in a modern racing car, this is an easy way to make it faster, as it's lighter and more aerodynamic. From a design perspective, having no weapons also removes the Peregrine from balanced discussions in PvP combat. This ship is not intended to be used in actual combat and is expected to disengage and flee any battles. The ship is equipped with countermeasures and 2 S1 shields. Otherwise, its main defensive asset is its speed. Even as an interceptor, it can be hard for an assailant to hit when it moves unpredictably and should easily create opportunities to disengage and flee. So I guess, again, I get it. A very unique case, but when you talk about unique cases, I am less inclined to spend $170. There you go. I feel like I repeated that a lot this episode. So with that, let's get into Inside Star Citizen. So this whole episode was based off of 324. We're excited about it. I hope you learned something. I hope this garnered some excitement for you. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I might go in and dabble in Star Citizen because I haven't touched it in a couple months or years. Now's a good time. If you know what to expect, like it's not a perfect polished game, you know that there's going to be some glitching and some clipping of boxes and items in your hangar. Like if you go in with those expectations, I think you would actually really enjoy 324. I truly do. I'm enjoying it, but of course I know what I'm getting into. Let's pivot entirely and start talking about 4.0. With 324 launching, this will be my question. This will be my poll question for everybody. With 324 launching on this past Wednesday, does your outlook for 4.0 change? Did you doubt a Q4 release of 4.0, but now you see light at the end of the tunnel? I don't know. I think we're really close. I want to remind my listeners, and if you're over on YouTube, my viewers, I want to remind you that one progress does not impact the other. Pyro's done. I want to be very clear about that. All the intel, all the videos, everything that we're hearing, Pyro as a system is done. We're done. It's ready to go. But it's server meshing. It's the tech on the back end that they're trying to figure out. They're trying to optimize and get ready. So we're waiting on server meshing. That's it. Yes, there are some game loops. They're throwing in some engineering type missions. I think there's like a charge drain. We talked about it on the last episode. There's some 4.0 elements there from a game loop perspective, but the system's ready to go. They can launch other game loops in 4.0.1, right? It's server meshing. So you can still build out the 324.1.2.3 at the same time making progress on server meshing. I personally believe that we are closer now to 4.0 than we were 3 days ago. Which I guess logically that is it's factually true because 3 days have passed. But I think you know what I'm saying. I think you know what I mean. I think it's more probable that we see Pyro in this quarter or this next quarter, Q4. Let's get into Inside Star Citizen. It's all about 4.0. They're calling it conflict resolution. Let's see what the article says about what you're about to watch. Which faction will you align with in Alpha 4.0? Tune in and get an in-depth overview of what makes each faction unique, along with their combat gameplay differences. Without further ado, let's do this. Share my screen for those of you on YouTube. Let's go.
What's the word I'm thinking of?
Murderous.
It's not. It's like it's not like, you don't want to say immersive, but it's visceral is probably a bit too much of a big word. Is like, I'm thinking engaging, I suppose.
Tell us what you really think of the back.
I suppose engaging is the word, right? Like you're gonna get a much more like engaging
you hear this?
experience.
He doesn't think you know the word visceral, people.
Well, it's a lot of syllables for a bloke from Coventry. We have a 2-syllable cat where I'm from.
As the Pyrostar system is lawless, this means that combat can break out anywhere. Social spaces can turn into combat spaces in the blink of an eye.
The main experience we're trying to build is something that feels a bit more like wild and not the typical thing that you've seen in Stanton. So the themes are a bit more chaotic than you'd expect. So for example, if you're shopping and then someone decides to take a firefight with you because they think your armor's cool and they want it, you can jump over that kiosk, sit behind that cover and return fire. So you're basically turning this shopping mall, which you were at previously, into a combat zone.
These spaces were built modularly with various different overlays that had to stitch together, but also make sure that it accounted for a fair combat fight and easy navigation for both vehicles and any other light elements that you want to be able to bring to these places. As for the trade posts, because of their ever-shifting inventory of things they could sell, could buy, things being on display, this changes the layout of the trade post itself.
Taking everyday objects in the trading post, like weapon terminals, something that you would purchase, would then, as soon as a fight is initiated, that becomes cover. You would be using these things to help yourself to not get shot by the enemy, essentially.
So you could be ducking behind cover behind a ship component that you want to purchase for your ship later, but first you've got to take care of this rival gang attacking you. Then afterwards you can decide, hey, I need to grab a multi-tool for this other salvage mission I need to go to. So after the firefight is finished, you go to the counter, pick up your multi-tool with a salvage component, pay for it, chip's done, and off you head out.
Taking what we've learned and these setups from Squadron 42 to Pyro, for example, NPCs having specific archetypes and having more specific classes, using things like defend areas and keeping NPCs in specific areas, Pyro, we're taking that to the next level where we're having more specific areas used for defenses and things like that and making areas stay in NPCs. We're also using something called schedule areas, which basically enforces NPCs to stay within a certain vicinity in combat. For 4.0, with server meshing, we expect higher server frame rates. So
I knew that part was coming. Did y'all hear that? We're going to go back 10 seconds. With server meshing, we're expecting higher frame rates. I want to make sure that we hear and see that. I'm gonna go back 10 seconds. Here we go.
Areas, which basically enforces NPCs to stay within a certain vicinity in combat. For 4.0, with server meshing, we expect higher server frame rates. So the idea is that you'll get a much more engaging AI experience. Let's talk about some of those classes. We have what we call our techie, which typically features light armor and SMGs, and they have more aggressive traits. So they're focused on getting close to you and flushing you out. Similar with our CQC class, which typically has shotguns, and obviously they have the much higher aggression version. You've seen us talk about traits at CitizenCon, and this is putting that work in the persistent universe and allowing us to create more dynamic situations. We're doing other things as well. For example, we're making NPCs hold up in rooms with shotguns and things like that. So when you have to eliminate a specific target and you're going into a room, those guys are specifically holding up there and you're kind of having a tug of war of them in close quarters environments versus them just kind of walking around the area. With our Juggernaut enemy, you'll have seen that that's the incredibly highly healthed LMG enemy, which ignores all shooting restrictions, can focus on pushing the player and shooting them out, and basically being that slow-moving target that walks towards you. Similar, including things like Copions into battle. One of the factions has pet Copions, and Copions fight alongside them, and that is fantastic because it gives you a different silhouette when you're fighting these factions. You know, you have to shoot a lot lower, you have to be a lot more conscious because they're a lot quicker than a human being, and just these nice little new additions to combat. We're integrating more things in terms of having people who are more aggressive, having different factions, having different accuracy profiles, and making the factions in Pyro feeling a bit more versatile and different to when you fight each other. These encounters are a lot more crafted and bespoke. Pyro is a system of conflict, and in there's many factions vying over control. When you arrive at Pyro, one of the first things you want to do is enlist one of the two primary factions. The Headhunters have more tiered structured armor, which you can acquire. The more higher tiered the armor is, the more tanky and resistant those enemies are.
As a Headhunter, you might be hovering around the Sunset Mesa, trying to think of how you're going to get close by. You would land your ships under the cover of darkness. You're taking your ground vehicle to the outpost. You're then getting out, trying to sneak past the outer perimeter, and eventually navigating your way down to either the gas tanks or to the main landing pit itself, and finding the exact critical point that would break the entire operation at the scrapyard.
Citizens of Prosperity have much higher and deadly accuracy. They also have more civil weaponry versus criminal weaponry as well, so you'll see things more like bearings and so on and so forth, versus other more lawless factions which typically have things like Castak arms.
If you're aligned with the Citizens for Prosperity, you might be given a mission to go to Rustville and actually head down into the canyons and try to steal some of their scrap from their derelict ships in the base of the canyons. Because of Pyro 1's unique terrain where Rustville is located, you will need to get into your ground vehicle again, navigate through all the twisting canyons and ravines, and use your multi-tool to steal as much scrap as possible to end up sabotaging the unlimited supply of scrap that the headhunters at Rustville have got.
So regardless if you side with headhunters or Citizens of Prosperity, you will both be able to fight the Xenothreat.
These hate everybody. They are operating out of Pyro 2, 3, and Pyro 6.
The Xenothreat is more what you'd think of as a PMC in terms of how you fight them and how they behave. They're a lot more cautious, they're a lot more careful, they won't try rush you out of cover, they play a lot more defensively. And we can use our trait system to inform how they make combat decisions. So where you'd expect someone like the Headhunters to be a bit more, run at you, push you out, the Xenothreat characters will be a lot more cautious and stationary and prefer to stay in cover and take long shots. And they'll have a much higher accuracy profile, but they'll shoot for much shorter durations, so they conserve their ammo a lot more.
A place we're going to fight Xenothreat is at the Last Ditch settlement on Pyro 2. Last Ditch is another large, lawless settlement.
We have a town close by it, and then different mining operations between the village and the mining tower.
And it's kind of a callback to the history of the system, where there was once these mega corporations in Pyro that would do these large-scale mining operations.
It's a vital part in the Pyro ecosystem for these outlaw gangs to control. So we can also see here that there is fortifications, but they're mainly around the village in which these gangs operate.
But interestingly, it's almost built on 3 levels. There's like a main habitation area on top of this bluff, and then just down from that is the refinery area. And then right at the base of the super large mega mining structure is a small sort of extraction area in an old kind of quarry. Should make for some very interesting fights, especially as you move between those sort of 3 sub-locations within the larger location.
I hope that the player will get a sense of trying to stop Xenothreat with their evil deeds.
Shadowfall is another Xenothreat outpost. It's quite a large Xenothreat outpost that lives in the shadow of this mountain on Pyro 3 and kind of just sits on the shore of this lake.
This location hits different. It's a location just like the outlaw locations, but we can feel that things have been turned up further. It is not only is it chaos, but it is now a structured chaos.
There's fire and there's these spiked barricades that make up the place around it.
Within the homestead location, we have a lot of elevated positions that the player will look to. We'll see that there is a lot of scaffolding build up, and it feels like a fortified position.
So in 3.23, we added sniper NPCs to the distribution centers. In 4.0, we're going further on that and adding specific watch nests and things like that to keep these snipers in. So you'll have to be careful and keep an eye on for these outposts and these high elevation where snipers could essentially hit you from. How we're validating combat is ensuring that the players can have a lot more stealthy approach, have a lot more overview of what their targets are doing and where they're going.
So you could use elevation to plan things out, such things as a comms tower, such things as cliff edges. You can basically survey over the trade post or the outpost itself. You can look at key things. Does it have automated weapon systems there? Does it have primary, secondary, and tertiary pathing to allow the player in?
It's all about defensive structures, about obstructing the player in order to get to its objective, with a lot of anti-air turrets littered around the location.
You are going to need to use your aerial support to take out these defensive measures so that you can even get people close to the location. Eventually, you can pull in your ground vehicles, drop off an elite squad. You can stealth through the scrapyard, you can stealth via the nearby lake, come through the derelict outpost section, finally clearing out Xeno threat once and for all.
Well, until they come back.
From another outpost.
It's definitely a place that will just feel very hostile to the player, and you feel like this is a location that has a purpose within the universe, and that it's important for these outlaw gangs to protect what they have going right here.
In 4.0, you can expect a lot more crafted, engaging combat experiences, with new archetypes, enemies using new weapons, fighting animals alongside humans, and all sorts of absolute crazy that you expect from Pyro.
Eradicate! Hey.
All right, Bosch.
Well, what more can I add? We always knew there'd be a lot of combat in Pyro, but with the addition of more AI archetypes from Squadron and the anticipated performance improvements generated by server meshing, we're hoping to deliver an experience that's more dangerous, engaging, and heck, I'm not from Coventry, so I can say it, visceral for our players. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week for a look at characters and creatures in 4.0.
I mean, it makes sense that they're leaning so heavily into 4.0 right now. I mean, the last several Inside Star Citizens, of course, have been about 4.0. This one's about the factions. You just heard next week is about the creatures and life forms in 4.0. I got excited about this one. And I don't know. I thought I had my poll for you, but I think this might be a better poll. But which faction are you thinking about, Headhunters or the Citizens of Prosperity? I think both are interesting, and I wonder how that will play into like orgs. Like, I don't know, does Soul Provision or does your org have to commit to one or the other, or can you have, or will it negatively impact, right, your org if you have a divide within your org? That's going to be an interesting dynamic. Haven't even thought about that. That was a real-time epiphany right there. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. I think the graphics look amazing. These locations look amazing. It makes me think of Maelstrom, right? So Maelstrom is the idea of destructible environments. If they do end up releasing that at some point in Pyro or 4.0, like, the question still remains, what does the refresh look like? So you're going to go to these outposts, these massive outposts, and you're going to be, conducting missions. A firefight, bullets will not take down an entire facility, right? But if you take a ship and you drop like an A2 bomb, I guess, like, how does it recover? And that's always been a question of mine. Is that's one of the 4.0 features, is this idea of destructible environments. To what degree? Sorry, I like literally started choking. Okay, so there's your Inside Star Citizen. Let's wrap this thing up before I die over on podcast. Let's go to the Galactapeida update. Now, there's no full article. Usually what happens is I get to this point, I read the full article because it's the most like engaging. It's usually the most of the work that's been released. And then there's 20 short articles. This one only had the short articles. So I'm just going to go through quickly and read each short article that was released. Not the actual articles themselves, but what you can go in and look at yourself. But here's your 20, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. And hopefully, this has been a good one for you until next week when we have even more content to discuss. Hopefully the hot fixes went through to 324 and we have a better experience to talk about. But here are your short articles in Galactapedia. So the Interstellar Transport Guild, the Cutter Rambler, the Cutter Scout, Wildstar Racing, the Armistead Perry, the Perry Line Pact, Zip, Storm Alpha Alpha, the 999 or the 999th Test Squadron, the Quasi Institute of Xenological Studies, And then you have all the planets in the Sol system. So this was a Sol system release. So you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So maybe another reason why I didn't necessarily want to go in and read all these is you know our solar system. Like, you know all about this. So go in and read it. I'm still, at some point, I'm finding the right time to get into the history of these ship manufacturers. You've asked for it. I think it'd be a great idea. We're going to go through the RSI ship manufacturer first. There's a lot of lore there, obviously, as one of the main trailblazers in the Star Citizen lore. There's just so much happening right now. Like, we're already an hour into this podcast, or over an hour in this podcast. And I want to make sure that I stay as close to that hour as possible. Last week we had Ollie and Space Tomato on. There's just always something else. So when I find that time, you will have your first lore effort or lore drop for the RSI. But I'm going to promote my friend over here, the Astropub. If lore is your thing, Paul, the Astro Hub, or the Astropub, the Astro Historian, he's a good friend of mine. Go check out his stuff. He has phenomenal lore videos. But I will get us there eventually. We'll have a lore drop that ends every episode. But until then. Well, like I said, I hope this finds everybody well. If you wanted to become part of the conversation, you can do so. Over on Spotify, we have the Q&A in the comment section. Please respond to that. Leave your comments. It will be discussed at the beginning of every episode. You can email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. You can follow us on socials, all social media platforms. That's /BTV_cast. And then over at YouTube, you can watch our videos at /BTV_cast. And that's the @ symbol. I think some people are having a hard time finding that, but it's the @ symbol, BTV_cast. You can become part of our organization called Soul Provision at www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. We are a cargo hauling trade transport org. So this is our patch. We are so excited about this. So if you want to in on that excitement, this is your home. This is your place to be. Looking forward to that. We are mainly in Discord. We don't do much in Spectrum. I don't think any org really does. So you're applying virtually so we can get you into Discord. But once you're in Discord, we live and breathe out of that for our organization. And last but not least, safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.